If you find yourself walking down the street in California and you notice that some of the criminal vagrants, homeless people living in cardboard boxes have really nice boobs, there's a reason for that. But warning, she's not a chick. And more warning, you paid for that rack. We're going to tell you all about Gavin Newsom's insane California. Speaking of insane, we haven't forgotten about all of the fraud in Minnesota, and we've got some updates on that and some testimony about just how corrupt that state is. And finally, why would 6 Republicans vote with Democrats to restore temporary protected status for Haitian illegal immigrants? Why would they do that? Well, we're going to lay it out for you, and I think you'll come to the conclusion that we did. They're not really Republicans. That and a whole lot more coming up right now. My name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry. Aging can absolutely suck. The lack of energy, the aches, the brain fog, always fighting the next cold. But all that changed for me when I was introduced to Strong Cell. Since adding Strong Cell to my routine, I feel alive again. I have more focus. I have more energy. I feel better overall, and I haven't been sick all year, even though everyone around me's gotten sick. Its key ingredient is NADH. It fuels your cells. Did you know that you have 30 trillion cells in your body? Healthy cells means a healthier you. Guys, I cannot say enough about Strong Cell. I wake up like at 4 in the morning. I do 4 hours of morning radio. I then come and do this show for you live every single day at noon without a break. I couldn't do it without Strong Cell. It has been a game changer for me, and it will be for you too. And by the way, there's no risk, so why not try it? Just go to strongcell.com and use the code Larry. You'll get 20% off. That's strongcell.com. Use promo code Larry, and like I said, it's 100% risk-free. So if you find yourself walking down a street in LA, Hollywood, maybe San Francisco, and you see criminal vagrants living on the sidewalk, cardboard boxes, and, all the gross stuff going on there, and then you realize that, well, that woman has really big boobs. First of all, number one, what's wrong with you? Keep your eyes forward. Stop looking there. Number two, it's a transgender illegal alien, and Gavin Newsom took your tax dollars to pay for the aforementioned boob job. I wish I was kidding. The incredible Jesse Waters last night laid it out for you.
Where is your money going? Well, if you live in California, Gavin's spending it on boob jobs for immigrants. Meet Jacqueline, a homeless migrant from Mexico who spoke to journalists at the Manhattan Institute.
So here in California, they gave you the breast implant here?
Yes.
Free?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah. Do you feel like that's a good benefit for other migrants here in California?
Yeah, even though you're undocumented, you can get it.
Even if you're undocumented, you can get it. And it's more than just boobs.
Were you able to get the hormones or,
Yeah, I did that with my doctor.
So Medi-Cal, you got the breast implants?
Yes.
Wow, taxpayer funded.
Gracias, Gavin. Remember back in 2022, he promised sex changes for everyone, and I mean everyone.
Universal health care for all, regardless of pre-existing condition, regardless of the ability to pay, and regardless of your immigration status.
NEPADS nuked the program just last year when he started running for president, and his state ran out of money. So no more new sex changes for migrants unless you're transfathered in. Happy
Transfathered in. Thank you, Jesse. By the way, if you're like me, the second Jesse said, and it's not just boobs, you held your breath for what the video was going to show next. Thankfully, I suppose it was just hormones. I wish this was a joke, but it's very, very real. In fact, here's the full investigative piece here that dives a little bit further. This is from the Manhattan Institute.
Illegal immigration is exacerbating San Francisco's homeless drug crisis.
Take care, guys. Be safe out here.
The shelters are packed with undocumented migrants from all over the world. And more people like Lisa are confidently coming forward to say they're taking advantage of all the taxpayer-funded benefits to meet their unique needs.
she feels, yeah, she's undocumented and she feels safe here.
With the help of a Spanish translator, Lisa says he's staying in a homeless shelter, identifies as transgender, and is undergoing hormone therapy to become more like a biological woman after entering the U.S. illegally from Honduras.
Transgender.
In this Manhattan Institute City Journal investigation, a whistleblower with access to city data on homelessness says Lisa's story is becoming more common.
Universal health care for all, and regardless of your immigration status.
Especially after California Governor Gavin Newsom announced he's offering full health coverage to illegals through the state's Medi-Cal program, which includes gender-affirming care. Newsom recently reversed course, but that Pandora's box is already open.
Yes, they're safe here, they're welcome.
We visited several other shelters across the city to see if anyone was tracking what was happening within this undocumented homeless transgender community. While we couldn't find statistics on the number of gender reassignment surgeries performed on homeless illegals,
Were you able to get the hormones or?
Yeah, I did that with my doctor.
we ran into Jacqueline, who says he received taxpayer-funded breast implants after coming over from Mexico.
Taxpayer funded. Free.
Yeah.
He's now waiting for bottom surgery.
Yeah, even though you're undocumented, you can get it.
Jacqueline claims he's now a U.S. citizen and stays at this homeless shelter along the Embarcadero waterfront.
Are you happy with the results?
Yes.
Regardless of anyone's immigration status, he says this state is becoming more attractive to transgender illegals.
Great work from Christopher Rufo, by the way, Manhattan Institute. And yeah, there they are, Jacqueline. Waterfront property, by the way, there in San Francisco at the shelter for the transgender homeless people coming here for boob jobs and other surgeries. By the way, where are the women screaming discrimination? If you're a woman and an illegal immigrant and living on the streets and you're an A cup and you demand a C cup, you should be able to get that boob job too. Only men are allowed to get the boob job? Well, Democrats, Gavin Newsom, they hate women, apparently. I wish this was a joke. I really do. But it is tragic. It is horrible. It is obscene. It is disgusting. And it's government policy in California. They're proud of it. We've heard of birth tourism because of the sanctuary city laws. Well, now you've got sex change tourism, where you come into the country illegally and you're taken care of for all of your transgender needs. Chris Rufo, as I said, expands further on it. Gavin Newsom's office confirmed that California is giving free sex change surgeries to homeless illegal aliens. They're doubling down inexplicably, suggesting that without state-funded breast implants and artificial vaginas, migrants will die in the streets. Undocumented Californians don't get special treatment. Everyone on Medi-Cal gets the same access to care. If you want to call California woke for not letting politicians interfere with doctors or not wanting people to die in the streets, then you go ahead. That's a direct quote from the Assistant Deputy Director of Communications, the Office of California Governor Gavin Newsom. I'm sorry, I was reliably told that no government money goes to illegal immigrants' health care, let alone their sex change operations. And now they're bragging about, of course they do. And, oh, don't start telling me that it's just Medi-Cal, so it's just state money. No. This is all subsidized and propped up by federal tax dollars, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. When we have fights over federal dollars and Obamacare and money that's supposed to prop up the health insurance system in this country, and Democrats start screaming that because Republicans want to stop this madness, that means children are going to die on the operating table and pregnant women will never be able to get care and they're going to die in the sidewalks. They never tell you about, Jose who wants to be Juanita, because you're paying for that too. First of all, our tax dollars shouldn't go for anybody to mutilate their body, let alone someone who's not even a citizen of this country who came here against the law and broke our laws. But Democrats demand it from you. That's what you paid all those taxes for yesterday on April 15th. It's an absolute, disgusting, despicable abomination. And like I said, they're proud of it. But the good news is Democrats in California, they recognize that there's a problem. They recognize all of the nonsense that's being done with your tax dollars. They recognize how angry you are. They recognize all of the fraud that's been uncovered. And they're finally going to do something about it. California Democrats are bound and determined to make sure that they get to the bottom of all of the waste and the fraud and the abuse and the criminal activity that we have all learned about recently, thanks to investigative journalists actually following up and doing what the government is supposed to do and make sure that your money isn't wasted. They're finally going to stop it. Oh, don't get me wrong. They're not going to stop the waste and the fraud and the abuse. No. What they're going to do is stop you from knowing about it by stopping the journalists who are uncovering it. Here's Nick Shirley, one of the men who discovered all of this fraud. Just wait till you hear what California is about to do. They want to pass a law not to stop the fraud, not to stop the criminals, to stop Nick Shirley.
Yeah, they're trying to make it so citizen journalists or just average Americans who are going about seeing what's happening inside their community, they're trying to scare them from talking about potential fraud taking place inside of these communities. And think about it. They're literally willing to impose a $10,000 fine or imprisonment if you go and seek to find out the truth about a location that could potentially be fraudulent inside your own neighborhood.
Nick, let's just kind of play out that hypothetical. So whether you were in Minnesota, you also went to California, you would go up to the Quality Leering Center, a clearly fake daycare in Minnesota. There's your shirt. Yes, always on. And you would attempt to see if there's any children inside, right? And somebody comes out and talks to you. And now that person who's there possibly committing fraud could file a complaint in California that Nick Shirley is harassing me online, right? That's how it would work in effect. And then you would either see a year in jail or a $10,000 fine?
Correct. That's what it sounds like. And it sucks because inside these states like Minnesota and California, they've been proven to let fraud take place inside these immigrant communities.
Yeah, that's right. And by the way, you're the victim, but also people who actually need these services that Democrats have convinced us we have to fund with our tax dollars. They're not getting the services that they need. They're being scammed. They're being defrauded as well. And Democrats the only solution they've got is to cover it all up and keep you from learning about it. And for everyone who's now writing in the live chat or in the comments section about this is why California is lost and California deserves who they vote for and California is a disaster and okay, you might be right about all of that, but you're wrong about thinking it's just California. We've been telling you about Virginia, where they just elected a moderate Democrat as their new governor, Abigail Spanberger, who has now adopted every possible policy that California would dream of in this purple state of Virginia, because there's no such thing as a moderate Democrat anywhere in this country. They don't exist anymore. They're beyond a unicorn. They don't exist. You probably think Georgia is one of those states immune from this nonsense. You probably think that, well, at least Georgia's a red state, just sometimes they elect a Democrat, but, it's a conservative blue dog Democrat, right? No, Georgia's not going to fall to this sort of thing. Okay, put a pin on it for a second. Here's a debate of candidates for governor of Georgia, and take a listen to this conversation, and you tell me how moderate Democrats are in a place like Georgia.
Just to be clear, if that bill did cross your desk as governor, would you have signed it or vetoed it?
I don't support the government making decisions about who should compete in athletics. I believe that decision should be left to respective athletic associations.
So you would have vetoed it?
Yes.
There you go. A very simple notion that only biological women should compete in women's sports. And there's one of the leading candidates for governor saying, oh, yeah, I'd veto that. It's not up to the government to decide such things. It's up to the respective athletic associations. Okay. When Democrats tell you who they are, listen to them and pay attention, because if you think California is a standalone, There used to be an old saying, so goes California, so goes America. It's probably true. It certainly is when it comes to the woke left-wing policies brought up by California Democrats. And it's going from bad to worse over there. And now it's coming to your town. Beware. You've been warned. All right, coming up in 1 minute, speaking of those disastrous woke Democrats, we're going to turn back to Minnesota and get an update on the fraud up there and how entrenched it is in the Democrat Party. But first, in March of 1775 at St. John's Church in Richmond, Patrick Henry rose to speak words that spurred the American Revolution and echo through American history. Give me liberty or give me death. As we celebrate America's 250th anniversary, it's never been more important to reflect on our nation's values and commit ourselves to move our country forward. And that's why I'm happy to tell you that my friends at Americans for Prosperity have created a terrific way to celebrate this historic year through their One Small Step initiative. It's a campaign built on a simple idea. Liberty requires courage, conviction, and active citizenry. For nearly 250 years, Americans have preserved liberty through small, deliberate steps. Now it's on us, in the face of tremendous opposition to these ideals, to ensure these freedoms pass to the next generation. If you believe freedom is worth defending, then I encourage you to visit a250toolkit.com/Larry and add your voice for liberty. That's a250toolkit.com/Larry. This was paid for by Americans for Prosperity. Hey, remember all that fraud in Minnesota? Most of it centered in the Somali community, bilking you, the taxpayer, at the federal level and the state level of your hard-earned cash through scams and garbage and nonsense and criminal activities. Well, we haven't forgotten about it, and we're continuing to focus on it. Ilhan Omar, sort of the poster child for all the corruption and fraudulent behavior within the Somali community. Oh, I'm sorry. No. She's a well-respected member of the United States House of Representatives. Ilhan Omar went on The Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God, and she brought focus on this issue, and she wants to make sure that nobody forgets who the real victims in all of this is.
I've never been fined. I've never had any sort of financial issues.
Mm-hmm. What about the fraud case in Minnesota with the feeding?
Which is, again, I think that is the reason they are trying to create this thing, is because they think this supposed 30 million, or what did the president say, 44 million, is because of the fraud in Minnesota. They think I've somehow gotten something, which is insane. But it's a huge problem. I think it's now 230 million. That has been
yes, 250 is what they say.
Yeah.
Misuse funds meant for child nutrition.
Yeah, 230 to 250. There's been about 77 or so
75 defendants.
That have been indicted. Many of them have taken plea agreements.
That makes it. They got to make it hard for you, right? Just in general, not because you got anything to do with it.
Yeah.
But when he can point and say, "Well, this actually happened."
No, I mean it doesn't make it hard for me, but it does make it hard for, the average Somali business owner.
There you go.
Yeah. It makes it hard for the average immigrant business owner. It makes it hard for the average Black business owner, because it does create this cloud of suspicion, and and obviously it's become very politicized, and it will continue to be politicized as we get closer to November, and the level of harassment people are dealing with. Even you'll have people go to restaurants, coffee shops, with their cameras harassing all of these business owners
and daycares
and
right?
daycare centers,
It's
where
daycare
people have not been able to take their children because they're scared, and so that aspect of it is hard. When people ask
what can I do, how can you help, that is where it's challenging, because there isn't anything happening to them.
Oh, this is rich. We need to get through this together, okay? Just a couple of highlights worthy of commentary. First, I do like what she starts with here. When the subject of the fraudulent activity within the Somali community in Minnesota is raised by the host, her first response is
like never been fined. I've never had any sort of like financial issues.
I've never been fined. I've never had any issues. So don't. What are you asking me for? I've never. It's like, sorry, no one's accused you. Is there something you'd like to tell us? Why do you protest so much? What are you talking about? And then they have the discussion, and then it's revealed through the course of the conversation that over 70 people have, in fact, been arrested and or convicted of defrauding the taxpayer with these scams. And so what, I'm sorry, did you hear this? Charlemagne the God's question to Congressman Omar. Because here, we've followed this story. We've covered this. And we know for a fact that some of the people who have, in fact, been convicted of fraud in Minnesota or arrested for fraud in Minnesota have direct connections to her. She appeared in a promotional video for one of these food kitchen meal service places that's under suspicion, if not under indictment. She's gotten campaign donations from some of these people, right? So you would think the question from Charlemagne the God about these 70 plus people who have been arrested or indicted or prosecuted would be, well, why are you up to your neck with these people? Why are you connected to all of them? What is yours to? No, instead, what was the question?
Or, you know, the average Somali business owner.
There you go. Yeah.
It may
Oh, sorry, I skipped ahead too far. Here, right here.
indicted. Many of them have taken plea agreements.
That makes it. They got to make it hard for you, right? Just in general, not because you got anything to do with it.
Yeah.
But when he can point and say, "Well, this actually happened."
No, I mean,
That's got to make it hard for you that there have been over 70 indictments and or convictions and prosecutions. Oh, gosh, are you okay? That's got to make it hard for you because now you can't just deny that any bad behavior is going on. That's got to be really hard for you that you just can't put a blanket denial out there saying that it's all crap. It's got to make it hard for you that the people who are charging that there is rampant fraud in the system are actually validated and correct in the fact that there is, in fact, fraud in the system. Are you okay, Ilhan? Are you going to be able to cope? What can we do for you? Do you need a bowl of soup? What kind of stupid ass question is that? Oh, it's got to be hard on you. How about hard on the taxpayers? How about hard on the people who actually have children that thought they were going to a daycare center or would like to have their children going to a daycare center, but there's no money in the system left to pay for a daycare center because it's all gone to Somali pirates? Could we show some concern about them, please? But then the answer, who's it really hard on? All of the fraud, all of the abuse, all of the bilking of billions of dollars from the taxpayers. Who's it really hard on?
it doesn't make it hard for me, but it does make it hard for, you know, the average Somali business owner.
There you go.
Oh, yes.
It makes it hard for the average immigrant business owner. It makes it hard
immigrants in general. Oh no, what will we do with the immigrants now? This is hardest hit of the immigrants because, whoa, why would it be hard on immigrants? Oh, because the criminals here who have been defrauding us are immigrants. And let's just be clear, most of them illegal immigrants. So you got to really worry about them, poor things, because it's going to make them look bad. It's the old joke that Norm Macdonald made about, the next radical Muslim terrorist attack in this country. I really worry that it's going to reflect badly on the Muslim community. They're the real victims in the mass murder. Well, the real victims in the illegal immigrant Somali fraud case are the illegal immigrant Somali business owners. And it gets worse, by the way, worse than Ilhan Omar lying through her teeth and whistling past the graveyard and Charlemagne the God giving her a full body massage instead of an actual interview. How about this? This woman just testified in the Minnesota State Legislature about that body's investigation into the fraud. This woman is a lifelong Democrat. This woman worked in the Human Services Department there that oversees these programs. She saw the fraud with her own eyes, and as a good Democrat working for the bureaucracy, she notified everybody along the chain, all the way up to the governor. Listen to her story. Ilhan Omar doesn't worry about this woman. Listen to her story.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm one of those whistleblowers, and I am a current state employee. And I'm also a Democrat. I've only voted Democrat, and that's why I think this is a really sad day for me. I consider myself a very loyal person. I have worked at the state agency I'm at for 20 years. I believe I've had 3 jobs since I graduated from college. I've lived on the same block for 20 years. I'm kind of a ride or die person. But I want you to know my experience. And what happened to me was 7 years ago, I was what I would consider at the top of my game. I was in one of those rare times in life where you really enjoy going to work and you know that you are doing a very good job and life was really, really good. And everything I'm going to say now, I don't in any way mean to reference my coworkers, my peers. Your average state employee is very, very good, very good. I'm not unique in any way. I'm not uniquely smarter than anyone else or uniquely able to notice fraud any more than anyone else. I'm just a regular state employee. All of my comments and my concerns are really about the leadership and those that have appointed that leadership. So about 7 years ago, I noticed risky contracts that I was seeing. I had a promotion and I, for the first time, was seeing many contracts, more than just my own. Everything was sort of funneling through me and my work area. And so I started going up the ladder for the next 6 months, as a person would do, and talking to my supervisor, then their supervisor, and up and up. And so what I found was that I was really kind of getting nowhere. So after that first thing of noticing these things and realizing I was getting nowhere, I then realized that we had incredibly unqualified leadership. Not only did people not really know the solution to what I was bringing, but they really didn't even understand what I was saying. And that didn't make a lot of sense to me because looking at their salary and their job title, this is something they should have clearly understood and said thank you and proceeded to solve it. And that isn't what happened at all. What actually happened is the messenger gets shot. I became a very unpopular person amongst leadership there. And the retaliation and the smear campaign is strong. I was called everything from incompetent to a favorite is racist. You people who speak about fraud at state agencies, the first thing that leadership goes to is racism. And that is very hard to take. It is humiliating. It is career killing, obviously. Who is going to hire someone who is considered racist? So at some point in that period of time in 2019, there was a poster put up at the agency and it had 3 names on it. It was one of those posters that was sort of that, if you see something, say something kind of thing. And there was 3 names on the poster that we were to contact if we had concerns about fraud, waste, or abuse. And so I was working with those three people. And over the next year, those three people really made my life about as miserable as it could be. That was a period where my son was young. He's a teenager now, he's with me. But he was young at that time, and I used to sit on the front step of my house and cry because I didn't want him to see me cry. Because you don't want a young kid to see that. And those three names. Okay, let me just talk about those three names. One is our ethics officer in the agency I work at. She called me to tell me that if I spoke in front of the legislative committee, that I would likely be fired. So that's our ethics officer. Then our, at that time, chief compliance officer, now our commissioner, she had me involuntarily transferred to a different position to get me out of where I was. She called me on a Saturday along with our HR representative and told me that when I returned to work the next week that I had a new job. And I said, do I have any choice? And the answer was no, it's this or nothing. And the third person on that list, who was our director of auditing, so he's an auditor, he completely outed me. I reported fraud to him, and what he did is call up the person I was reporting on and said, Faye Bernstein just told me da-da-da-da about you, just completely outed me, which, as you can imagine, led to more of me crying on my front step.
Her story goes on and on and on, and it is a systematic telling of how the system, the bureaucracy, set up by Democrats, overseen by Democrats, run by Democrats, and controlled and funded by Democrats, systematically abused her, intimidated her, and eventually drummed her out of her job because she dared to point out the obvious fraud that was going on right before everybody's eyes. Later on in the hearing, Republican state legislatures turned the focus on to the Democrats at that body, who continue to abuse this woman and continue to protect that corrupt system because they're trying to block any and all investigations.
Everyone in the public to imagine for a moment, if you will, that $9 billion worth of fraud would have happened under Governor Tim Pawlenty. I would say that probably he would have been forced to resign by now. I'm just speculating, but based on my history in this place, there's always a double standard. And Representative Jordan, you're talking about petty grievances. $9 billion in fraud is a petty grievance. Taxpayers, today is tax day, the day that the government extracts money from you that involuntarily, okay? A petty grievance of $9 billion, and we talk about affordability. $9 billion would go a long way towards helping affordability in the state of Minnesota for people that can't even afford to put gas in their car right now. And to call this idea harebrained, Representative Coulter, $9 billion, holding people accountable for $9 billion in fraud, I don't see as harebrained, and I don't think the people of Minnesota do either. You talk about Representative Howard of every day ending in Y. Every day ending in Y is a new fraud story in the state of Minnesota. It's embarrassing, and it's expensive, and it ticks most people off. It ticks me off a lot as a taxpayer who just paid thousands of dollars in taxes. The people of this state want accountability. That's why we're here today. It's not because of what President Trump did. It's not because of what something J.D. Vance said. It's not any of that. This is what is within our power as state legislators to bring before the legislature and this committee to hold elected officials accountable. The governor needs to be held accountable for this fraud. The Attorney General lied before Congress. That's no small thing. Tell me if those weren't Republicans, what you would be doing.
Well said, ma'am. And if you're looking for Minnesota to hold these people accountable and to see any sort of repercussions, criminal repercussions or what have you, don't hold your breath. The best we can get is this kind of thing, and that's good. But we do have a federal investigation continuing to go on, and every time anybody testifies under oath, they open themselves up for perjury charges and obstruction of justice, so there is that. But the point that she just made is incredibly important, and it's one that needs to resonate, especially with the way the media is covering this story, media outside of outlets like this one. And that is, to paraphrase what my friend radio talk show host Chris Plant says all the time, were it not for double standards, Democrats, and by extension, the legacy media, would have no standards at all. Coming up in 1 minute, what do you call a Republican who votes with Democrats to keep illegal immigrant Haitians in the country? I've got a few ideas. We'll find out what you call them coming up in 60 seconds. But first, I want to tell you about my friends at BestHotGrill.com. They make the Solaire Infrared Grill, the hot, fast grills for everyday, year-round grilling. You may already have a low-temperature, slow-cooking smoker, egg or pellet barbecue, or a Weber kettle. They're fine when you have the time. But you don't have to wait for the weekend with the Solaire Infrared Gas Grill. It heats up to 1,000 degrees in just 3 minutes, even in the dead of winter. The high heat locks in the juices. It grills food faster and makes steaks, chicken, veggies, and fish more succulent and tasty. In a matter of minutes, your family can have a healthy and great-tasting grilled dinner. And with Solaire's demo rental program, you can try before you buy, grilling all the foods your family enjoys for 2 weeks and the weekend in between, and see why the USA-made Solaire is the last grill you'll ever buy. Learn more at BestHotGrill.com. That's BestHotGrill.com. Try before you buy with the Solaire demo rental program at BestHotGrill.com. Illegal immigrants from Haiti have been protected in this country thanks to Joe Biden's blanket order to give them temporary protective status. Of course, people refer to it as TPS, and they seem to forget that that T stands for temporary. You know, there are people in this country, illegal immigrants from El Salvador, still covered by temporary protective status or asylum, emergency asylum that they got as refugees because of an earthquake in that country 30 years ago. That's not temporary. And so President Trump and Republicans in the administration have lifted the temporary protective status, entered Democrats in Congress, and as written up here at our sister site, PJ Media, part of the Town Hall family, 6 Republicans joined those Democrats too. They want to keep Haitians here in this country under temporary protective status. This apparently, Ayanna Pressley from Massachusetts proposed this bill, which would provide the TPS to Haitians in the U.S. for 3 more years. And it passed 219 to 209. So you've got 6 Republicans in the House of Representatives on this year of a midterm election where, last I checked, cracking down on illegal immigration and protecting the border was kind of a hot issue in the last election that gave President Trump a sweeping victory. You've got 6 Republicans joining up with this woman. This woman.
Dangerous, and it is preventable. To deport anyone to Haiti right now is unlawful, and it would be a death sentence.
I'm sorry, why would deporting somebody to Haiti be a death sentence? I was told it was a beautiful island nation. I was told that if you refer to that country as a bleep hole, as the president was alleged to have said, that you are being evil and racist and discriminatory and xenophobic, and just sending someone there, someone who's from there, someone who was born there, someone who legally belongs to be there and doesn't belong here, sending them there would be a death sentence? Why exactly? Well, as soon as you start asking those questions, well, guess what? Like I said, you're racist and xenophobic and, well, all those things that they'll always tell you. Brandon Gill, freshman congressman from Texas, has examined this issue and shared on social media exactly what we're talking about and who these Haitian illegal immigrants are that 6 of his colleagues on the Republican side are protecting. 65% of Haitian non-citizen households are on welfare. Nearly 2/3 of Haitian non-citizens who have come here continue to be supported and propped up by your tax dollars. And by the way, I continue to be told that these are the best among us. They're the best people here. They're the best citizens here. They pay more taxes than anyone else. They're the valedictorian in every high school. They are the hardest working people that do more for our economy than someone whose family has been here for 6 generations. Well, if all that's true, and it's a wonderful fairy tale, why in the hell do 2/3 of them need welfare? They're draining our resources, making America weaker and poorer. It's absolutely idiotic to give them backdoor amnesty by extending TPS. And that is exactly what this is. It is backdoor amnesty. Here's the data to back it up, and it's coming from Center for Immigration Studies. It shows each country's non-citizen welfare eligibility and what they're getting. And as you can see, Haiti's draining the system there. Haiti is, although not as bad as Mexico, Ecuador, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, Dominican Republic, and Afghanistan, 87% of Afghans in this country are currently getting welfare programs as well. Let's focus on that next, shall we? But that did not stop some of these Republicans from grandstanding on social media and thumping their chests and virtue signaling to, I guess, their voters in their districts. I don't know. Explain this to me. Why are you pandering to the illegal immigrant community in your district, I guess for votes? Because I keep hearing, well, these Republicans are in purple districts and they really have to. I was told illegal immigrants don't vote. So how is keeping them in the country and giving them welfare programs and keeping them from being deported helping you win your election? Representative Nicole Maliotekis. Who's she from? What state is she from? Let's say it is New York. There you go, New York. We've heard from nursing homes in our district that will lose skilled and dedicated nursing staff if TPS is not renewed. So 2/3 of illegal immigrants from Haiti getting temporary protective status have come here. They sit on welfare. And what the other third all got nursing degrees, and now they've got jobs as nurses? Let me just be clear. Nursing homes, which, by the way, when they call somebody nursing staff at a nursing home, that doesn't necessarily mean a registered nurse. You know, you've got a nurse, a registered nurse, an RN with a degree and a license, and they do all the things at a hospital and a doctor's office, and they really do more than the doctor a lot of times. No offense, doctors. But then you've got, notice the words here, nursing staff at a nursing home. If you're a nursing staff at a nursing home, that could be you're making minimum wage and your job is to clean up after the messes that have been left. You could be making minimum wage and your job is to deliver the meals. And suddenly you're called nursing staff. This makes it sound like this is such an important, vital jobs that Americans won't do. And it's true. Probably they are jobs that Americans won't do. Not for minimum wage. And I assure you, the money that these nursing homes are making through Medicare and through other government subsidies make them quite rich. They could be paying more for this staff. This is, once again, a cheap labor scheme or a welfare scheme. But listen to the hand-wringing. Listen to the tug of your heartstrings. We've heard from nursing homes in our district that will lose skilled and dedicated nursing staff if TPS is not renewed. These are Haitian immigrants who are working, paying taxes, and contributing to our economy and fulfilling a health care need. To strip them of their status and deport them to a country in peril would be uncompassionate and misguided. Can you look at this again? 2/3 are on welfare. Don't tell me about how hardworking they are and how many taxes they pay. I promise you, if you are on welfare programs right now, you are not paying taxes. Because if you make below the threshold of personal income to qualify for those welfare programs, that means you're also below the threshold to pay taxes on your income. It's all a scam, it's all a lie, and it's all to prop up big businesses like nursing homes that want to pay cheap labor. Representative Don Bacon of Nebraska, Republican. Removing TPS status for Haitians living in the United States would cost 350,000 workers their ability to work at a time when we've already faced serious workforce shortages. By the way, this is a really 350,000, and he refers to them as workers, not illegal immigrants. They're workers, which is Marxist talk. It drives me nuts when I am called a worker. Do not reduce me to being a cog in your corporate machine, that my entire existence is just to serve your bottom line and be a worker. I am not a worker. I am a human. But no. Go ahead, Congressman Bacon. Call them workers, 350,000 of them. So if 350,000 illegal immigrant Haitians are here under temporary protective status, do you know what that means? I'll tell you what that means. It means 350,000 citizens or legal immigrants with green cards are not getting those jobs. That's what that means. I've heard from healthcare providers and business leaders across Nebraska. Notice how they're all using the same modified script. And the Omaha Chamber of Commerce. Yeah, the Chamber of Commerce. What do they want? What do they like? They like cheap labor, and they want to exploit it for you. Who are concerned about the impact this would have on patient care and our economy. I don't see the goodness of deporting people who are here legally, working, and contributing to our country. And by the way, this is another one. Once again, Representative Maria Elvira Salazar from South Florida. She champions all these amnesty plans. And as Gunther Eagleman points out on X, he voted with the Democrats to block President Trump from deporting illegal Haitians and extend TPS. And then got this comment from this dude from the Cato Institute. These are the libertarians who again, honestly, at least libertarians are honest about it. They want open borders. They don't want any immigration laws because all they want is the free market to reign and get the cheapest labor possible. Okay, fine. At least you admit it. I'll give him that. But then that's where the honesty implodes. They aren't illegal, David Beer says. They're not illegal. They have protected status. So you come to the country illegally, and because Joe Biden waves his shaky, stinky fingers and gives you temporary protective status, suddenly you're not an illegal immigrant. Well, guess what? When the new president comes in and makes it not temporary anymore and removes that status, you are once again an illegal immigrant. And the vast majority came here legally, too. By the way, if they came here legally, then they don't need temporary protective status. But be clear about the weasel words he's using. They came here legally, but then they've stayed illegally. You see, that's how it works. They came here legally. What are you going to do to them? Okay, well, when were they supposed to leave? Oh, about 4 years ago, but they just stayed. Okay, so that still means they're illegally in the country. Trump is trying to create more illegal immigrants. Congress should stop him because that's not in our interests. Understand the weaselly way he's going about it. Listen, if you just lift temporary protective services, all you're going to do is make them all illegal immigrants. That just makes the illegal immigrant problem worse. Oh, I've got a better idea. How about they leave? This is what we're dealing with here. And you've got 6 Republicans now who have joined that side. So my question still stands, and I would love for you to answer it for me in the live chat right now or in the comments section. What do you call 6 Republicans who vote with Democrats to keep illegal immigrant Haitians in this country and protected and funded with your welfare tax dollars? What do you call them? You got a name for them? I'd like to see it. And please, keep it clean. All right, coming up, we've got our bonus clips in 1 minute. But first, I want to personally invite you to join me, Scott Jennings, Kurt Schlichter, and Mike Gallagher for an unforgettable week on the Town Hall Gulf of America cruise, November 14th through the 21st. We're going to be sailing through crystal blue waters, visiting incredible ports like Half Moon Cay and Cozumel, and enjoying the first-class hospitality of a beautiful luxury cruise ship. But honestly, you can book a cruise anytime, anywhere, direct with the cruise line and stuff, right? You could. But what makes this cruise really special is not just the water and the islands and the ports of call and the great ship and the food. No. It's the time we're going to spend together in person We're going to do meet and greets. We're going to do stage shows. We're going to do live Q&As. You can have real conversations with all of us. You can watch us interact in real time as well. It's going to be phenomenal. And you're not going to hear it or see it anywhere else. Not from a stage, not from a screen, not from a device, not from your radio, but right there in person with us. And we'll have drinks together and we'll have meals together, and it's going to be a blast. We're going to share stories and ideas and a love of country. We're going to celebrate America's 250th anniversary with people who are like-minded, who also are patriots, who also love our country, who you don't have to look over your shoulder to see if someone else is going to be a blue-haired, nose-pierced, maniac, woke leftist when you're celebrating how great our country is. That's what this is all about. So let's all have a party together. And by the way, this cruise is going to be like a week after the midterms, so you know we're going to have a lot to talk about, maybe even a lot to celebrate. So reserve your cabin today and join us on this cruise. Me, it's O'Connor, Jennings, Schlichter, Gallagher, and Jennifer Horn from KRLA. LarryCruise.com. LarryCruise.com. Which brings us Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris decided to put together a really great social media video to point out how terrible gas prices are right now, how this got past her incredible social media team, I'll never know. But watch how cringe and awful this is.
Hey everyone, so I'm here in Charlotte. Since the start of Trump's war of choice, it's $15 more every time you fill up your tank of gas. The price of diesel has now gone up 80% since the start of the war. And you best believe that's going to carry over to how much you're paying for all the goods that are being transported on those semis. We've got a president who is paying more attention to what he thinks is in his best political interest and personal interest, as opposed to what is in the best interest of working people in America.
Perfect. One take wonder. Lock it in. We'll post it on Instagram. Never been better, Kamala. Can't wait for you to run for president. What a disaster this is. Can we just break this down for a second? Because I want to make sure you saw what I saw. First of all, look at the angle. Look at the shot. I guess they really wanted to get the dollar sign in there. But maybe you go across the street where the sign is a little lower to the ground so you don't have to have this weird angle where Kamala Harris looks that big. And also the suit, ill-fitting, not a great look, kind of hippie, not going to lie. Also, look at the lighting, where the sun is behind her and her face is in shadows. This is just, everything about this is just a disaster. But then watch this. I noticed this, and perhaps you'll remember. Remember when Joe Biden used to put up these videos from the White House, and like every 3 words there was an edit because he had mashed potato for brains? You remember that, right? Well, watch this.
Hey everyone, so I'm here in Charlotte.
Okay, that was an edit. So I'm here in Charlotte. What are we, 2 seconds in? Watch it again.
Hey everyone, so I'm here in Charlotte.
That was an edit. That was a jump cut. So she couldn't keep going? She didn't remember what she was supposed to say? There's more. Watch. Okay, so then, since the start of Trump's war of choice, okay, whatever.
Start of Trump's war of choice, it's 50.
That was an edit. I mean, you would think $15 more every time. Okay, so Vice President Harris, just look at the camera. Don't worry, we'll edit this later. Just look at the camera and say, since the start of Trump's war of choice, it's $15 more to fill your tank with gas. Go ahead. All right. Since the start of Trump's war of choice, it's $58 to fill your... No, Vice President Harris, it's $15. 15. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I got it. Since Trump's war of choice, it's $50 to fill your... No, Vice President Harris, it's... All right, listen, we've got the Trump's war of choice thing, so just take it from 15. It's 15, 15, and then we'll just edit it in. I think that's what happened here. Why would there have to be an edit right there? Watch.
Start of Trump's war of choice, it's $15 more.
Do you see what I see here? Is she really that bad? I mean, she is that bad. But she can't even. This is 30 seconds. Can you not talk for 30 seconds about something you feel passionately about? I'm pretty sure you could. I know I can. I do like 90 minutes on this program talking about things that I'm passionate about. She can't do it for 30 seconds with how many edits? So that's 1, that's 2. Let's count them
Every
all.
time you fill up your tank of gas. The price
3.
of diesel has now gone up 80% since the start of the war. And you best believe that's going to carry over to how much you're paying for all the goods that are being transported on those semis. We've got a
4.
president who is paying more attention to what he thinks is in his best political interest and personal interest as opposed to what is in the best interest of working people in America.
Okay, so 31 seconds, 4 edits. That works out to about, 8 seconds per edit. That's a disaster. But she sounds great. Isn't it great to have her voice in our life again? Oh, she's running. Come on, Kamala. Come on, please. Please run, please. All right, we go from the ridiculous to the sublime. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to give you an American icon, a hero, a classic. He doesn't make a lot of public appearances, but last night at the University of Texas, Austin, he did. The legendary Justice Clarence Thomas.
I think if we don't stand up and take ownership of our country and take responsible for it, we are slowly letting others control how we think and what we think. I think the beauty of going to school is that you learn how to think for yourselves. You develop the discipline to think things through. If you think it's losing confidence, then you get up and you participate. You don't sit on the sidelines. You think that the state is being run and inconsistent with how you feel, then you get up and you participate. You prepare yourself. If you think that the medical profession is not right, well, you become a doctor or be a medical person, and you deal with that. I think we need to take ownership of our country. It's our country.
Amen. God, I love that man. Everything he says, everything he's written. There's a great documentary about Clarence Thomas in his own words. You should watch it with exclusive interviews with him about his life and his childhood and his career. Let me just say, the Bush family, I know that there's a lot of critics of the Bush family, and there's a lot of people who, aren't huge fans. Let me just say this. George Herbert Walker Bush, 41st president. He was a World War II hero, got shot down in the Pacific. He was a congressman. He was the director of the CIA. He was the ambassador to China. He was Ronald Reagan's vice president, and he was the president of the United States. But let me tell you something. All those things, amazing resume, right? He nominated this man for the Supreme Court and stood by him and stood by his nomination. It was when it was under fire and it was being trashed and his reputation was being trashed by the likes of that scumbag Joe Biden. And George Herbert Walker Bush, the president, he stayed strong and he stood by him, and Clarence Thomas got on the Supreme Court. And that, my friends, this man right here, that is the greatest part of the George Herbert Walker Bush legacy, that bar none. All right, we go from the ridiculous to the sublime, back to the ridiculous. Ladies and gentlemen, Jasmine Crockett, she lost her primary for the U.S. Senate to James Tallarico and Stephen Colbert. Her district has been redrawn. This is her last year in Congress, so she's got to find a new hustle. What's it going to be?
But I'm a whole lawyer. So I will potentially go back to practicing law. I'm engaged in conversations with some law firms about what that will look like. I want to be semi-flexible as it relates to the practice of law, because I absolutely want to get to this book.
So she's going to go back to law and practice law. And I, for one, am excited. I was kind of hoping she'd be on The View as one of the new panelists there, so we had material to work with every day. Or maybe a primetime show, CNN, MS Now, what have you. Maybe she could do a joint venture with Joy Reid on a Substack, but nope. She wants to go back to law, and she's been reaching out to a lot of different law firms. So we'll watch that space. We're looking forward to seeing what happens to young Jasmine Crockett. Have you noticed, by the way, now that she's not running for Senate anymore, the big butterfly eyelashes are back? She got this thing going on. Although I don't know if they get disrupted by the glasses. She's got to watch that. But there they are in all their glory. That's pretty amazing. All right, let's get to your super chats real fast, if you don't mind. What do we got? God's best friend, £2 super chat. Have you seen the proof that Kevin was in Westworld? I haven't. If you emailed me, dude, I have not checked my email, but I'm going out for a rally in Virginia later today, and I will check it again before I go. I'm going to be. Oh, by the way, anybody in Northern Virginia, the D.C. area, today, 4 p.m. Eastern, I'm doing a rally with Mercedes Schlepp and with Governor Glenn Youngkin in Leesburg to rally against that gerrymandering constitutional amendment in Virginia. Come join us. I'll see you at 4 o'clock. Scream at me, say, hey, Larry, because you can call me Larry. GBF, £2. What's biology again? Asking for my cat. Thank you, GBF. Jeff Depew, $2. How do you get a biology degree, teaching degree in California? Yeah. Amazing, isn't it? GBF, £2. Somalia to send humanitarian aid to Ilhan Omar. She is the victim in all of this, GBF. £2 from GBF, the average local winery owner. That's all Ilhan is. She's just looking out for the average local winery owner. Stumbleboots, $2 super chat. Thanks, Larry. Thanks, Kevin. You're cool. Wow, he speaks. Stumbleboots actually spoke to us instead of just you're cool. And a new Garfield with giant feet. Sisangarli, $1.99. Sorry if I said CC Engarl. Can't Ms. Ilhan Omar do the Pocahontas DNA test? That's actually, she should for her brother. God's best friend, £2. Entry to Trump's U.S. isn't a death sentence. Yeah, exactly. It's a death sentence to go to Haiti, but what about the fascist United States of America? GBF, £2. So Kamala supports Iran's regime. Look shocked. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, GBF, and thank you for all of your super chats. All right, let's continue with today's program. We've been talking quite a bit here on this program about fraud in government programs. Specifically, we've seen it play out with these hospice investigations, Medicare fraud, Medicaid fraud. What can we do about it? Are we going to fix it? Who's being victimized by it? And who's looking out for them? Well, let's get into all of that with our friend, Senior Vice President for Campaigns at the AARP, John Schlichter. John, I see these stories and I think of my mom, who's on Medicaid. I think of my dad, who we had to put in a home care facility before his passing last year. It is outrageous what these stories look like, and the type of fraud that were the real victims, other than the taxpayer, are these older citizens who are hoping to actually take advantage of these programs, use the programs they've paid into.
Yeah, I mean, it's an issue that we clearly have to crack down on, and it's going to be incumbent upon us as taxpayers that folks ultimately are weeded out of the system. We see it all over the country, and we need to make sure that the programs are set up for people to use them in a legitimate fashion. And so we're heartened about the fact that that's happening, not just in this space, but fraud overall is becoming rampant, both with this stuff and in the private sector as well.
I saw a stat that something like $200 billion has been scammed out of Americans, not just taxpayer dollars, but also just out of Americans' pockets by scammers in 2024. And are older adults and retirees more susceptible to these scams?
They are. We know by doing our research, 41% of older Americans have become victims of fraud. And essentially, that number is probably low because, as you can imagine, a lot of people are embarrassed by becoming a victim of fraud. And so it's not just, as I like to say, somebody sitting in a basement doing this as a one-off. It's become a huge conglomeration of people around the world who are doing this, and it's causing problems because of the nature of how sophisticated they've gotten, particularly with things associated with crypto ATM scams and other things like that. And unfortunately, older folks who have a very strong opinion of authority fall prey to folks who call up and pretend that they're somebody in the government or a sheriff office or something like that, and they get taken advantage of and they lose their life savings, unfortunately. And it continues to be a problem that we've got to crack down on.
It's horrible and very sad, and it explains why older Americans are sort of more susceptible to this. That makes sense. Somebody calls with authority, starts talking and saying that they're potentially exposed, and then they go along. What can well, first of all, what's AARP doing on behalf of older Americans to try to sort of focus on this and actually help people out? What kind of tools are you providing?
So first of all, we're raising awareness. So we have been fighting fraud for several years, and we've had a wonderful group of folks who have formed what's called the Fraud Watch Network. And folks can go online to aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network at any point and see some tools that they can use to help them combat fraud. I also like to tell folks, in particular our listeners who are older out there, if somebody calls you on your cell phone and pretends to be somebody of authority, hang up, don't answer it, because it's just not a true person on the other end of the phone. And I know that's hard for some people, but you're better off doing that than succumbing, because normally what happens is folks get a little bit of personal information about somebody, and then they can ride that in a conversation with somebody, and it causes consternation. The other thing we're encouraging folks to do is take action both at the federal and state level. On the federal level, I can briefly touch on a couple of things. There are a couple of acts that have huge bipartisan support in both the House and the Senate. One is the GUARD Act. The other one is the Stop Scams Act among seniors. They're both designed to help with coordination and making sure that enforcement officers can work across federal, state, and local lines and bring more coordination to this effort. And believe it or not, one of the other issues that is really terribly sad, Larry, is some folks, if they're scammed out of their 401k money, say today, still may have to pay taxes on that, which is just absurd. And so what we're trying to do
injury
is get Congress to pass an act which would alleviate that tax when it's all said and done. On the state level, with the rise of the crypto industry, we've seen a number of scams set up where folks unfortunately get a call, take their money, and go deposit crypto money into what's called a crypto ATM, and the money disappears. And so we're starting to see some states understand how important it is to stop that type of fraud. Governor Braun in Indiana just signed a bill that would eliminate that type of fraud in Indiana, and you're starting to see that over the course of the country as well. So those are just a couple of things we do. We also have a hotline, if you will, that people can call and get help from a real live operator. It's 877-908-3360.
All right, and of course, people can go to aarp.org for information about this too. I checked it out before our interview, and you've got information there readily available. You sort of delved into a little bit of it, but maybe you can expand, because one thing that we can do is the first thing on your list, which is to expand awareness and let people know and draw people's attention to it. So, is there a trend in these scams that people should know about? Because I know, right after our conversation, I'm going to call my mom and just remind her. If people call you, if people say there's a problem, don't give them any information. You call me, you call one of my brothers, we'll help you out with it. But what are some of the trends that you're seeing right now that people are falling victim to?
Well, it's that in particular, as you know, Larry, a government agency can't contact you, for instance, unless they send you a letter, a snail mail letter. And so we're seeing some trends with people posing as either IRS agents or Social Security agents, for instance, and calling up potential victims. And as I said, having just enough information and being threatening, actually, in their conversations, so that it appears that the victim is doing something wrong, so to speak. And by putting that pressure and urgency on victims, it causes them sometimes to, unfortunately, turn their hard-earned money and life savings over to these criminals, because that's the only way they can be described. They're criminals.
Absolutely awful. You mentioned that this is an international thing. I mean, it's sort of. Obviously, criminals are behind all of this, but are there international, like, foreign governments sort of behind this sort of stuff too, to victimize us? Who do you think is behind these scams?
I think it's mainly private sector folks in other countries as well. You hear about Nigerian private sector folks. You hear about some folks in other countries like that. And, we continue to press our government to make sure that they act in accordance and in partnership with some of these countries to make sure that we eliminate those entities where they exist as well.
Have you been able to track also, and because I've been reading a little bit about this, how AI is used in these things? I saw an example of AI, voice-activated AI, being so smart that they can engage in one of these phone calls with somebody, and you think you're talking to a real person.
Or you think you're talking to your grandson or granddaughter, for instance.
Yeah.
Which is even scarier.
Because they can replicate people's voices off of videos on social media.
And that's only going to get worse as AI gets much more sophisticated over the next couple of months and years. So, and that continues to be a problem. I mean, the age-old scam, as you've probably heard of, a grandmother assuming she's talking to a grandson or a granddaughter, and the person saying, you know, you need to wire or go deposit $5,000 in cash to help me, is only getting more sophisticated as well because of AI.
Yeah. ARP, I saw also, you just did a survey about this, right? About the National Fraud Survey. And is it right that 41% of Americans who are over 50 have been victimized by it? That's almost half of every American over 50 that have been victims.
Who admit it? That's the most important thing.
Good point. Good point. 'Cause, you know,
As I said, a lot of people are probably embarrassed, as you can imagine, if they succumb and become a victim of fraud. So I suspect that number is even higher than the 41% that showed up in our survey.
All right. So people our age, like I just said, we should reach out, touch base with our moms, our dads, our aunts, and uncles, and just say, you know, there's a lot of this out there. And we can point them to the ARP website where you've got all this detail and say, take a look, educate yourself. What else should people do? What about if somebody is watching or listening to us right now and they know they have been a victim of fraud? Can you guys help them?
They can call our hotline again, 877. Let me see where
we got it on the screen, 908-3360.
I would definitely call the hotline because again, we have operators set up to help folks, in particular, even if they've been a victim of scam, to help them through the process. And these are very committed folks who understand a lot of these different types of sophisticated fraud actions and can really help folks in a one-on-one basis. So I would definitely call the hotline first and foremost.
John, you've been around a while. You've been in D.C. for a few decades, and I know that you tackle a lot of issues like this. And obviously, criminals are terrible people. But boy, oh boy, it takes a special kind of monster to specifically target and victimize elderly citizens who are on fixed incomes, who are just trying to live out their golden years. It just disgusts me when I hear stories like this.
It does to me too, Larry. And I think that it's important that we continue to bring this to the forefront of our elected officials and our decision makers, because as you know, in Washington, D.C., this isn't something that just pops up in terms of what they could potentially do to help. So we need to bring it to them and say, hey, y'all need to get engaged in this and talk about this. And, you know, elected officials have their own bully pulpits, so they can share with their constituents what to do or not do as well, beyond just passing laws. And so if we can get everybody talking about this and really isolating these acts and isolating these criminals, we'll be much better off for everybody across the country.
John Schlichter, thank you so much for joining us. Always enlightened after our conversations. And I know that our main goal was to raise awareness, so consider awareness raised, I think, after this one.
Larry, I really appreciate your help.
Thank you. You bet. And that does it for our program today. Thank you for watching, as always. Cannot wait to see you tomorrow. And I will, by the way. We'll be back same time, same place. In the meantime, my name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry.